Despite spending decades with legendary people, one relationship still lingers on the periphery of Eric Clapton's history. His relationship with Jimi Hendrix was brief yet impactful. 6 strings and burning stages were used to make the link, and one present that was never offered. Time lowers Clapton's voice and creases his face, but the weight of recollection never goes away. It gets sharper. A silent gesture conceals a tale that will not die. It has nothing to do with competition or even homage. It's about what was nearly shared and uttered. And now, decades later, we go back to a story that has always been a part of him. One night, one guitar, and one absence that continues to sing. If time had stopped even once, what may have happened? The legend's origins. Jimi Hendrix famously pretended that a broomstick was a guitar before ever holding the actual instrument, demonstrating his enchantment with music. Hendrix experienced a difficult life filled with instability and adversity as a working-class African-American child growing up in America amid a period of intense racial and cultural conflicts. His personality and the explosive rawness that would characterize his artistic voice were shaped by these early events, which created a deep well of emotional intensity within him. Hendrix joined the U.S. Army after high school and trained with the 101st Airborne Division as a paratrooper. He gained a strict sense of discipline from his military service, but it also increased his quest for artistic independence. After being released from the hospital, Hendrix gave his all to pursue music. He put in a lot of overtime as a backup guitarist for legendary rhythm and blues acts like Little Richard and the Isley Brothers in the early 1960s, honing his craft while also annoying a lot of band leaders with his unconventional approaches and love of improv. His uniqueness set the stage for the revolutionary change he was about to bring about in the world, even though it occasionally presented challenges in his career. Chas Chandler, the Animals bassist, saw Hendrix play at the Café Wafa in New York City in September 1966. Because Chas believed Hendrix's guitar-playing ability was unmatched, he took him to London. The Jimi Hendrix Experience was created by Hendrix with Mitch Mitchell on drums and Noel Redding on bass. The British rock elite was mesmerized by their music, which was a contemporary fusion of blues, rock, soul, and psychedelic. Hendrix became a formidable force after his first song Hey Joe became a huge smash in the UK charts and was followed by the unexpected hits of Purple Haze and Wind Cries Mary. The album Are You Experienced was released by Hendrix in 1967, regarded as one of the most impactful rock debuts ever. It brought studio technique and technical innovation in guitar playing together, putting Hendrix at the forefront of the cultural change at the close of the 1960s. He became a musical hero on both sides of the Atlantic by burning his guitar at the Monterey Festival. Few commercial careers have lasted as little as Hendrix's, which lasted little under 4 years, but what he ignited for the sake of music was a fire that would never go out, and his hardships and quick ascent would forever change the face of rock. Fate gave him a stage that would alter everything just as his music was starting to take shape. London is shocked by Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix didn't just enter a thriving music environment when he arrived in London in 1966. Instead, he set off a creative explosion that rocked British rock to its foundation. An exclusive crowd was awed into silence by Hendrix's performance during a showcase organized by Chas Chandler at the Bago Nails Club. The biggest stars in British music, such as Paul McCartney, Jeff Beck, Mick Jagger, and Keith Richards, were among those there. Hendrix's meteoric ascent to prominence as a rock music pioneer began that night, as word swiftly spread that something exceptional had arrived. But it was Hendrix's unexpected arrival with Cream that really solidified his fabled reputation. At the time, the ensemble was regarded as the height of British rock guitar skill. Hendrix invited to jam with the band during a live concert at Regent Street Polytechnic in London. He connected to Jack Bruce's bass amplifier with his usual composure, and began playing a smoldering version of Howlin' Wolf's Killing Floor, a tune that Clapton had considered intimidating. Everyone in attendance was astounded by Hendrix's boldness and ease of handling the composition. The band, including Clapton, was clearly startled by his speed, technical skill, and showmanship. Clapton said that seeing Hendrix play that evening was both amazing and scary, which was rather humbling for a man who British music fans have long described to as God. Hendrix made an impression. He broadened the scope of what the electric guitar was capable of. He displayed more than just virtuosity that evening. It happened. It was a visceral encounter that twisted the room's air. Eric, bassist Jack Bruce, recalls the contrast between the two. Jimi was some sort of force of nature. Eric played the guitar. The leading artists in Britain experienced a mental shift that night when they became aware that a new order of music was challenging them. It wasn't a pot of gold that brought Hendrix to London. On the music magazine's top covers, he came to spend time with Jeff Beck and Clapton, two of his idols. In just a few weeks, he was able to meet his heroes, and was regarded as at least as good as them. The club's four walls did not contain all of the energy from that evening. It had an impact on rock and roll's attitude as well as sound, reverberating throughout the British music landscape. Clapton was left backstage, smoking a cigarette frantically and mumbling to himself, "You never told me he was that good," as writer Keith Altham remembered. The legend of Jimi Hendrix was born in Britain on that day, and their connection was established via music. More than just a fortuitous meeting between two guitar virtuosos, Eric Clapton and Jimi Hendrix's 1966 encounter marked the beginning of a deep and unusually passionate relationship. After moving to the center of London's music scene from New York, Hendrix quickly established himself. Clapton greeted Hendrix with sincere appreciation rather than withdrawing into competition. Clapton recognized a kindred spirit in Hendrix, someone who shared his passion for the blues, when many others in the business would have viewed him as a danger, yet conveyed it in a way that seemed both fresh and antiquated. Hendrix exuded a lovely yet wild energy. He has a bold and soulful approach to the guitar. Clapton acknowledged Hendrix's playing's unadulterated emotional depth in addition to its technical mastery. The two hit it off right away because they both respected blues heritage and wanted to push the boundaries of music. Their instruments screamed loudly about trust, innovation, and tacit understanding, and their chats weren't necessarily verbose. Without the attention of tabloid headlines, their friendship had quietly grown out of an innate understanding rather than regular joint ventures. They would spend evenings together in the clubs, sharing backstage moments that were never documented. Hendrix, who was always praising Clapton, was now accepting the fact that he was revolutionizing rock guitar. Clapton considered himself fortunate to have known him as a man of heart, humor, and soul, in addition to being a musician. Although there were aspects of reciprocal appreciation in the friendship, Clapton's personal musical endeavor was also inspired. Clapton's playing developed a path that included both talent and vulnerability, as a result of the emotional honesty Hendrix infused into his compositions. Few people could really understand the impact of Hendrix's tragic, untimely death in 1970 on Clapton. For the following 3 or so decades, Clapton's planned rendezvous on the night of Hendrix's death, a meeting that never happened, became a visible emotional scar. Since then, Clapton has kept quiet about Hendrix, protecting the integrity of their friendship with a melancholy that is frequently seen in his eyes. For Clapton, losing Hendrix was more than just the death of a bandmate. He had lost someone who added even more wealth to the world and to his work. Clapton never gave Hendrix the guitar. Jimi Hendrix's entrance was a seismic event that completely changed the rock scene in London in 1966, and more than most, Eric Clapton sensed it. Despite Clapton's long-standing reputation as Britain's top guitar virtuoso, Hendrix's amazing skill did not incite competition. It created a surprising connection. Their connection swiftly became stronger since it was based on mutual admiration rather than rivalry. By 1970, Clapton considered Hendrix to be a musical brother as much as a peer. Clapton made a very personal gesture by buying a rare left-handed Fender Stratocaster as a gift for Hendrix because of their close bond. Although it was a modest deed, it had deep significance, a representation of the unwritten agreement between two guitar titans' respect and friendship. On the evening of September 17, 1970, the present was supposed to be delivered. Hendrix and Clapton had arranged to meet at a Sly Stone show in London, which was meant to be the start of a new chapter in their developing friendship. But in the cruelest way, fate stepped in. Hendrix did not show up. He was discovered unconscious at the Samarkand Hotel the next morning, having died tragically and unintentionally from a deadly mix of alcohol and barbiturates. Carefully selected and brimming with spoken emotion, the left-handed Stratocaster was never given to Hendrix, rather it turned into a painful artifact, a quiet monument to the link that was tragically broken overnight, and to the rendezvous that never transpired. Clapton saw the guitar as a haunting symbol of loss that was difficult to describe in words. In the few times he has mentioned it, his voice has always been marked by obvious sadness. Death, which Clapton could not run from, carried a certain emotional weight in addition to the disrespectful act of offering something so insignificant on the surface. And he now lamented hundreds of moments that would never happen, dreams that were suddenly conveyed, and interrupted talks that were not heard. He was reminded of more than simply Hendrix's unadulterated skill by every look at the Stratocaster. The human connection they were forging, which was cut off before it could develop into something amazing. That unplayed guitar still serves as a spooky reminder of Clapton's troubled history. It is a message of a personal connection full of potential and great faith, as well as a musical collaboration that may have reverberated down the years. For Clapton, Hendrix's passing and the abandoned instrument encapsulated the fleeting essence of existence. Every note that is played and every quiet that lasts longer than planned gives him the incredibly painful musical voice of desire. Hendrix's legacy and the present he was never lucky enough to receive linger in the background. How Jimi Hendrix was silenced by addiction. The strain of fame got more and more oppressive as Jimi Hendrix reached the pinnacle of international popularity. Under the stage lights and thunderous cheers, Hendrix was negotiating a maze of personal difficulties. His charismatic, fearless, and untouchable exterior belied a very tired and disturbed man. His life was filled with increasing stress in the months before his death, including a tense paternity case, growing hostility with his manager Michael Jeffrey, and a taxing disagreement over his recording contract. The mental and physical strain of constant touring and media obligations were added on top of this. Hendrix was exhausted, physically and mentally, behind closed doors, and these stresses started to show out in a growing number of self-destructive actions. Hendrix saw himself growing more and more alone in spite of his enormous success and the admiration of his followers all over the world. He was dealing with ongoing health problems in the latter weeks of his life, including a recurrent case of influenza. Once known for their intensity and accuracy, his performances have started to exhibit indications of weariness. Additionally, he was using drugs and alcohol more frequently to cope, mostly barbiturates. Even though Hendrix was known to be sensitive to some medications, he's still using sleeping medicines to get rid of his sleeplessness. His closest friends and family were worried, but Hendrix, who is renowned for being a recluse, mostly kept his inner anguish to himself. He felt as though he had no real place to relax since the world he had helped electrify was closing in on him. For Hendrix, the evening of September 17, 1970, was rather typical. It was meant to be a peaceful night spent cocooned close to his lover Monica Danneman at the Samarkand Hotel in London, but it ended up being tragically irrevocable. The following day, a weary Hendrix is found unconscious. The autopsy revealed a heartbreaking cause of death: asphyxia following vomiting, which was brought on by consuming too much red wine and Vesperax sleeping pills. He exceeded the recommended dosage by 90 times. According to the official conclusion, the occurrence demonstrated the collision of untreated mental and physical health conditions with uncontrollable substance consumption, resulting in an accidental overdose. In essence, Hendrix was a guy who had been weakened by the same equipment that had made it possible. Questions and rumors began to circulate almost immediately after his death. Since he had been more outspoken and insistent about relinquishing control of his administration and his legal disputes, some suspected foul play, while others conjectured that his death might not have even been an accident. Despite an official appeal to revive the case in 1993, the inquiry has never produced a fresh result. Beyond these problems, however, the terrible truth that lingers is that the world lost a generational talent much too soon, not in a sudden spectacular way, but rather in a long tragic unfolding. In Renton, Washington's Greenwood Cemetery, Hendrix is laid to rest beneath a tombstone that reads, "Just forever in our hearts." His passing serves as a sobering reminder that even the brightest stars can burn out when their brilliance is combined with an intolerable amount of weight. A human being with a voice attempting to be heard, even in quiet, is constantly sitting behind the music. However, Hendrix's fire left behind traces even in the absence of the flames, and one guy tracked the smoke, impact on the direction of Clapton's music. Jimi Hendrix's 1966 debut in London was more than simply a musical one. It was a profound cultural moment that changed people's perceptions of the electric guitar. For Eric Clapton, whose reputation was based on his technical mastery and unwavering dedication to the blues genre, the entrance of Hendrix was both eerie and inspirational. Clapton's tone, touch, and accurate renditions of American blues had earned him admiration. However, Hendrix took a very different approach to the instrument. Hendrix did more than just interpret tradition, he stretched and twisted it into something wild and otherworldly. His use of the guitar as a vehicle for emotion in its most chaotic human form, in addition to being a melodic instrument, subtly started to permeate Clapton's thoughts. Hendrix's audacity sowed a seed that would eventually sprout, but Clapton's musical metamorphosis took time. Clapton started experimenting with the muddy, unexplored realms of tone and improvisation, moving away from the accuracy that had defined his early work. Wheels of Fire and Disraeli Gears were two albums that demonstrated a renewed openness to all experimentation. His style began to be flavored by wah-wah pedals, fuzz distortion, and layered psychedelic soundscapes. Hendrix had shown that danger could be thrilling, and that flaws might be beautiful, and Clapton absorbed their teachings. His solos frequently veered into wilder, more uninhibited terrain than previously, being less about technical proficiency and more about expressing emotion. Clapton's sensitivity on an emotional level was maybe the most significant change in his career. Hendrix was renowned for transforming noise, distortion, and feedback into artistic manifestations of discontent and desire. In order to reveal flaws and rawness, Clapton started to shred the glossy surfaces of his own playing. Hendrix's emotional openness and Clapton's own heartbreaks are equally responsible for the contemplative pain that permeates Layla and other random love songs. Emotional fragility, inquisitiveness, and desire were crucial in his guitar lines, lyrics, and arrangements, while mechanical mastery suddenly seemed distant to Clapton art. Clapton would silently hold on to his admiration for Hendrix in the years after his passing. It was uncommon for Clapton to mention Hendrix in front of a crowd without a hint of passion in his voice. Nevertheless, the effect could be heard in every tremulous note bend and in every instance where emotion overshadowed beauty. The idea that mastery was sufficient had been destroyed by Hendrix. He had demonstrated that surrender was necessary for excellent music. Through this unspoken mentoring that lasted beyond Hendrix's lifespan, Clapton's own artistic abilities developed and blossomed. Clapton was transformed by more than simply Hendrix's performance. However, Hendrix's energy served as a reminder to him that music's soul, not its polish, is what really makes it powerful. Recordings and performances by collaboration. At New York's Gaslight Cafe, John Hammond gathered Jimi Hendrix and Eric Clapton for an impromptu jam session, marking one of the most amazing but sometimes disregarded periods in music history. Even the most creative rock historian would find it hard to believe what happened at the little venue, which is renowned for fostering blues and folk legends. Two of the best guitarists of all time, or at least of their era, playing side by side. With close personal ties to both artists, Hammond planned this event for the sheer thrill of doing something unique rather than for financial gain or exposure. Hammond led a band that would go down in legend, with Clapton to his left and Hendrix to his right. Clapton was already well known in the British blues rock scene at the time of this spontaneous performance, while Hendrix had just returned from his quick ascent in London. Mutual respect and a love of the blues rather than ego or rivalry characterized the gathering. Hendrix and Clapton performed with a unique sense of synchrony, responding to each other's phrasing like seasoned comrades and trading licks with seamless flow rather than competing for attention. They played with responsiveness and instinct, creating a real-time musical dialogue. Later, Hammond characterized the relationship as electrifying, with each guitarist bringing out the best in the others without exchanging words. This jam session was noteworthy not just for the star power on stage, but also for the atmosphere of artistic freedom that permeated the whole space. Pure, raw expression was allowed, as there was no formal pattern to follow or rehearsal to deal with. Clapton and Hendrix performed for their own enjoyment, not to impress the cameras or critics. An introspective look at all that blues is: emotional, improvised, and terribly deeply communal. Both guys, in Hammond's opinion, were quite modest and grounded in spite of all the positive things that have been spoken about them. For those fortunate enough to see the evening, their brilliance and humility made it possible. This contributed to its mythology because it was not formally or otherwise documented. The narrative is told through the murmurs of those in attendance and Hammond's amazing recall. Like legend in a rock community, past stupid, it serves as a definition of music. When ego and expectations are removed, a language emerges that transcends time, money, and even celebrity. Beyond the short-lived moment, the occasion encapsulated the strength of collective talent. It was a brief but significant meeting of two titans of music that are rarely seen together in such an honest, unguarded manner. The Gaslight Jam honors the power of music when it is motivated by respect and passion, echoing across history. Winwood and Clapton bring back the brilliance of Hendrix. Eric Clapton and Steve Winwood's reunion on stage at the 2010 Crossroads Guitar Festival in Bridgeview, Illinois, was a stunning tribute to Jimi Hendrix. Voodoo Chile by Hendrix was not only a cover when they performed it, it was an unvarnished and impactful homage to a guy who had revolutionized the vocabulary of rock guitar itself. The occasion was especially meaningful to Winwood. He had supplied the original organ parts to Hendrix's seminal Electric Ladyland record more than 40 years prior. Now that he was standing next to Clapton, he went back to that classic material with a seasoned, soulful touch that gave an already iconic song new depths of feeling. A heady sense of joy and appreciation was brought to the scene by the Crossroads Festival. In addition, there was a level of musicianship that was accessible to everybody. For a long time, Eric Clapton was accused of having cliched live performances, but he responded with a fire that was as brilliant on stage as it was off. Despite having Jeff Beck, Buddy Guy, and Derek Trucks on the bill, Clapton and Winwood were responsible for creating one of the event's most memorable moments. Along with Voodoo Chile, the lads also played Trafix's Dear Mr. Fantasy and Blind Faith's Had to Cry Today for the crowd. However, their rendition of Hendrix's masterpiece was the most explosive thing they performed that evening, igniting the night and reinvigorating the innovative spirit that Hendrix stood for. Clapton's relationship with Hendrix has always been incredibly close-knit, fostered by friendship, admiration, and a passion for the transformational potential of rock and blues. As they performed together, this affining relationship was felt strongly. Winwood's roughness from the organ gave the air a heavy undercurrent, and Clapton's words were so intricately interwoven with soul that they were bursting with technical brilliance. They both perfectly encapsulated Hendrix's artistic style, bold, emotionally charged, and able to connect with each listener on a genuine and unvarnished level. It seemed like a living tribute that preserves Hendrix's musical energy via their own voices, and it was more about continuity than reproduction. The 2010 Crossroads concert serves as a reminder that Hendrix's impact endured after his death. This spirit is kept alive and well by the best of his torchbearers. Crossroads and similar events are more than just concerts in the conventional sense, according to Clapton. They serve as remembrances and a means of paying tribute to the friends and heroes who helped him along the path. The Call Mirrors by Clapton. The Reflection of Hendrix. The Call, a recent album by Eric Clapton, is a profoundly reflective and melancholy song that evokes the contemplative mood that has long been connected to Jimi Hendrix's most subdued emotive compositions. Clapton, who is renowned for his ability to seamlessly blend gospel, rock, and blues, appeals to a universal feeling of redemption and desire in this song. Each note seems to have been carefully selected, encased in a bittersweet yearning that speaks to a larger quest for meaning as well as personal loss. The Call is a powerful meditation on memory, sorrow, and the intangible pull of the past, much like Hendrix's own forays into softer, more introspective ground with songs like Little Wing and Angel. In the song The Call, Eric Clapton's voice provides a rich inscription of a timeless and resounding force. The depth of passion in that song, "The Call," appeared to be heightened by his delivery. A man with a strong voice, expertly aged but yet displaying unadulterated vulnerability, conveys that profound honesty to listeners, who may find it difficult to ignore. Images of invisible presences or unreceived messages are depicted in the lyrics. For instance, "I contacted you immediately after receiving a message last night that was quite clear, but no one was there." The eerie loneliness that Hendrix frequently experimented with in his songs is then gone. It's almost as if Clapton is reaching out, not only to a long-lost acquaintance or love, but maybe to Hendrix's own spirit, creating an imperceptible sonic boundary between the present and the echoes of a rich musical history. The Call's subdued yet powerful guitar demonstrates Eric Clapton's ability to convey more ideas with less. As an alternative to the technical pyrotechnics that characterized a large portion of his previous career, in order to convey emotion, he goes all out here with tone, sustain and extended pauses. This is more akin to how Hendrix used to do it in his own ballads, when every gentle vibration carries a weight that words alone could not. Like Hendrix, Clapton employs the guitar as an extension of the soul, allowing it to fill in the gaps left by the lyrics' omission of unspoken truths and lingering melancholy. In this kind of performance, the listener should be able to sense each piece as a component of a larger human experience, rather than merely hearing it. Hendrix's shout continues to influence the sound of generations even as the cry reverberates faintly. A lay lively and relevant today. Red House, bold as love. And If 6 Was 9 are just a few instances of songs that consistently change the listener's emotional state, demonstrating how his melodies never truly die with the emotions they arouse. In every note, his guitar captured a variety of human sensations, wetgacy that reverberates across all generations. Jimi Hendrix's impact endures across time, genres and cultural barriers. Even after his tragic death more than 50 years ago, he pushed the limits of what music might be with his unwavering inventiveness and unmatched electric guitar skills, converting amplification, feedback and distortion into innovative tools. Rock star Hendrix was more than that. He was a visionary who transformed modern music's essence and sound. He respected the blues foundations of his work while pushing them into unexplored areas, demonstrating his authenticity in a field that is sometimes molded by uniformity. Themes of injustice, freedom and resiliency were addressed in his highly personal yet socially conscious poems, which gave voice to a turbulent time. Hendrix used his position to dispel prejudices and highlight the value of artistic freedom while also giving long overdue credit to the black artists who founded rock. Generations have found new meanings in Hendrix's music, which is stirred was roaring revolt or whispering despair. The dynamic quality of his art is demonstrated by the fact that modern musicians cite him as a key source of inspiration. However, Hendrix's influence on society goes beyond only their music. In the annals of history, his star-studded banner performance at Woodstock endures as a silent spectral protest. Suddenly it was over. He once referred to it as the wink of an eye. However, his spirit is still alive in some way, and it becomes louder every time a new performer dares to be unique. Thank you for viewing. Please remember to subscribe for more in-depth explorations of music's unseen moments like this article, and leave your opinions in the comments below. To ensure you don't miss a beat, tap the bell. Additionally, the following video is already on the screen, ready for you. To continue the music, click it now.